Welcome to the AxeCast podcast. Conversations with interesting people from the world of Acadia athletics and more, talking about their lives, successes, and failures. And now let's join hosts Len Hawley and Eric Cedarberg for the next 15 to 20 minutes as they dive into the life of today's guest.
1981 was a special year for Acadia Axemen football. First, it was the 25th anniversary of football at Acadia when it turned over from rugby back in the 1950s. It was also a special year because for the second time in the school's history, the Axemen won a national championship. They did so in Toronto with a big victory over the University of Alberta. Pleased to have two members of the 81 team, Keith Skiffington and Don Clow. Guys, thanks for doing this.
Well, thanks for having us, Len.
Yeah, appreciate it.
You both were members of the 79 championship football team. Keith, I'm going to just sort of throw this to you. Pardon the football pun, but just a little bit about, you guys were here at an era when football was really strong in Acadia. So sort of help us lead us up to 1981. Give us a sense of where football was and the success you guys were enjoying in that era.
Well, there was really a successful program, that was built by Bob Vespaziani and the group, that preceded us. John Heward came in 79 and sort of took over that. Acadia had been to the College Bowl, I think, 2 times in the previous 3 years before that, and had not won. We had some obviously some very good teams and very good players from that. So when we came into 81, he brought a real, different style, or when he came in 79, brought a different style to us, and he was new, and he had quite a mystique because he had played in the NFL as a linebacker, and he had sort of this presence, with his gaze sort of a bit of an angle and his eyebrows down, and everybody wasn't sure what to make of the guy. He was, and you certainly didn't want to take him on if he was a linebacker in the NFL. So he brought that mystique, and for kids, at that age, that was really important. So, they really bought into what he was doing. And then he brought some different sort of ideas, to us that, at the time were maybe seemed a bit different, in terms of jumping rope and stuff like that to improve our foot speed and all that. But he was very much, the other thing that he did that was really good when he came in was he said, I don't really care if you were the star on the previous team or whatever. Everybody starts from scratch, and everybody's got to earn their role. And that was sort of our mentality in all the teams. It wasn't, it was everybody worked hard to be part of the group and to be and was treated that way. Like there was no, he often speaks about there was no stars. Well, there actually were some guys that were better than the others. There's no doubt about it, but the team concept was the overriding factor on that he brought, and people bought into it.
Donnie, talk about a little bit of the transition. You go from 1979 into 1980 and 81. When you look at that 79 roster and then the 81 roster, was there a big turnover in those 2 years?
Yeah, I think there was. I mean, the 79 team had a lot of the, I'll call it legacy players from the 76, 77 teams that went to the Vanier Cup. And I think as Keith was saying, what John instilled was a sense of teamwork and discipline, extraordinary discipline. But what he also brought was a number of, I'll call it fifth-year Americans and some great players who played 4 years in the U.S. And they came up in 79 and played their 5th year at Acadia. And they were, there was a quarterback, a couple of running backs, defensive tackle, and a defensive back that were really, truly great guys and great players. And they really took us to another level. But I think, as Keith said, it was, John's sense of teamwork, the discipline around it. We were the least penalized team in the nation. And he also had a run-first mentality, which was quite interesting. And so 79, I'd say, was a little bit older team. They did lose a game, which the 81 team didn't lose a game. It was undefeated, one of the very few teams to go through the regular season and playoffs undefeated. But the 79 team was just bigger, older, and I would argue at time maybe better in terms of skill level. Had a lot more guys that could run faster, et cetera. But when you got to 81, we had quite a bit of turnover. Keith and I think, are two of, maybe 9 guys that were on both teams, 9 or 10 people. And so we ended up with a younger team. And they abolished the 5th year rule, I think, in 1980. made people come in their first year. So we ended up with, a lot more younger team. But nevertheless, exceptionally disciplined. But it was a run-first mentality leading into that game. And you see it when you watch the game. You'll see the game plan started with the run and then eventually turned to the pass when we really couldn't get any significant yardage on the ground. Alberta was just such a strong team. So it was, but it was an interesting philosophy. John was a great leader, really. You just looked up to him the whole time.
Keith, as I said at the outset, 1981, a special year for a number of different reasons. Obviously, the 25th anniversary, the 81 championship, that we'll dive deeper into that. But leading up to that championship against the University of Alberta, you guys are undefeated for the season. You're one of only 4 Axemen teams to ever do that, and only one of 13 CIS teams to ever do that. When you go into that 81 season, Keith, do you guys sense that this, even though it's a younger team, that this is a special year?
I think going back to what Donnie was saying is that when you're playing with John Heward, you felt every year you had the opportunity to win, and and that's when you were showing up at camp, that's what you saw. Like we won the year in '79, we lost on the Atlantic Bowl in '80 to Ottawa, but we felt we could have won that year too. We just had that mentality that we could win. So when we came into 81, as Donnie said, the team in 81 had about 50% of the team were from the Maritimes, young guys. But we had a feeling, that we could win it all, that year as well. And it was always our mentality when we played for Coach Heward that, our goal was to win at the end of the year. It wasn't, and how we got there. We fortunately won all the games in the way, but we wanted to be in that game at the end of the year, and we had the confidence that we could win it. So, yeah, it was first year. I remember he had a meeting and we talked about it, and people bought in. And I watched the game recently because I wanted to get reacquainted. It's hard to remember from 40 years ago exactly what went on. But when I watch it, and I watch the discipline. With our line and with the guys and how people ran, to the ball and how you could just see where the coaching, made such a difference to us, and it really stood out when I watched the game, even after 40 years, right?
Len, one of the things they told us about the 1981 team was that we may not be that the biggest team, but we were the slowest team.
Yeah,
we weren't. We were sort of we were underdogs in '81. Remember?
Yeah.
Season, quite frankly, people thought. You look back and you think undefeated, but we had a lot of close games, including the Vanier Cup, and we were a little undersized. And I don't think anybody really thought we could win. Even in the Vanier Cup, we were 23-point underdogs to a much larger, much faster Alberta team, and so. Going through the season, you don't know where you're going to end up. You just keep working hard and trying to figure your way through to win a few games. So we're very fortunate to go undefeated, I think.
Yeah, we're sort of inching a little bit closer to getting into the weeds of that championship game. But before you get there, of course, you go undefeated in the conference. Then there's the Atlantic Bowl, and you've got to go past Queens. And you talked about close games, but Donnie, this isn't a close game. You guys rout them 40-14.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that game, in my memory, I think it was Larry Priestno had a hell of a game and had 200 yards or something rushing. It was just an incredible game. But again, we were setting the tone with the running game and then only passing when you had to. And in that game, the running game worked. And really, Larry and Snoopy Tynes, I think, just ran roughshod over Queens, and they were a great team, had great athletes. But it just was one of those games where we really had good fortune, and the game plan worked really well. So. It worked out really well for us.
So you punch your ticket after the Atlantic Bowl, Keith. You're going to Toronto, play at Varsity Stadium against the University of Alberta. And Donnie said it a few minutes ago, you guys are 22-point underdogs. So sort of take us inside the scene here. What's Coach Heward saying to you guys leading up to this game to prep you for a game that everybody thinks you're going to lose?
Well, I think, with Coach Heward, it's always, we know what we can do, believe in yourself. And, and he just instilled such a confidence in you that despite what was being said out around, I don't even remember. I remember we were underdogs and we were just thinking, oh, that's just normal. We're always underdogs, right? So just another game. But, it was sort of a matter of fact that, we were going to be competitive in that game. And we could, get an opportunity to go out and win that game. And I remember Heward it was one of the events that week. It was one of the luncheons. He gets up and he's speaking there and he says, Acadia is AC and that comes before AL, so we're before those other guys. And, but that's how, that's what you felt. You felt that you always had the chance to win, and you were going to be competitive, and you were going to give them heck, and you were going to play the hardest. And, you never felt like, we never felt as underdogs. We just sort of thought that was just a tag, really.
Donnie, you guys, this whole 81 championship game is a seesaw battle, and Acadia takes an 11-3 lead, into the second half, and then Alberta's going to go ahead in the fourth quarter, and I mean, it just goes back and forth. But take us back to halftime, Donnie. You guys are up by 8 points. What's the mood in the dressing room? Are you guys surprised at where you are at that point?
My recollection of the game, and I haven't seen it in quite some time, is that we ran the ball, at least on offense, we ran the ball in the first quarter and didn't have a lot of success. We were getting stopped almost every time, 3 and out. And then in the second quarter, we opened it up with some passing. And I remember one of the announcers saying, wait a second, these guys can actually pass the ball. What's going on? And I think there was a great touchdown to Hubert Walsh, a long bomb that Steve Rupick threw that nobody anticipated, and it just opened the game right up. And then obviously on defense, the team was just playing incredible. I mean, when you look at that defense, it's all about gang tackling. You've got a lot of great players, but man, they work as a team, and they're just always 3, 4, 5 guys around the ball. And that was the key to. You don't hold a team like Alberta to 3 points in the first half without having an amazing defense. And you had defensive backs, in the backfield making tackles on running backs all the time. And so, it was a great game plan, and great athletes like Keith and Tommy Johnson on defense, were just making plays all over the place, and it was a full team effort. So, but it was cool. At halftime, I think John, really said stick to our game plan, and I think we came back out in the third quarter and started running the ball again. And we'd had great success, but on offense, but with running the ball. But for some reason, Alberta, they were just bigger than we were. Let's be honest, they were bigger. I remember the defensive backs were bigger than I was, and I was the tallest receiver. So it was, a big team, a fast team, and they were tough to run the ball against, and we just really had to go to the air in order to have, score points. So. Yeah,
it's interesting. You watch the game, and Keith, talked about Alberta's 22-point favorites. They don't even score 22 points in this game. And, if I was going to make an assessment on it, obviously, as Donnie just talked about, defense wins this game, but the offensive side of it is opportunistic. Is that fair?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I did watch the game recently, and they really were opportunistic. Like we, as Donnie said, we came out running in the first half, and they were prepared. The field wasn't the best field that day either. It was a bit soft, so it didn't make it for great running for backs. And they stopped us, and then we had to. And then Repick, who was the quarterback, started to roll out and actually take off a bit. And he started to sort of opened it up, and then that opened up the pass. And in the second quarter, then we started rolling, so he took advantage of that. And as Donnie said, he threw. Actually, Donnie, you kicked it off. With there was a pass to Donnie for about 19 or 20 yards. That sort of kicked off the drive. And then he went. Actually, there was another pass in that sequence where he went to George Watkinson, and who caught a one-handed catch at the goal line and got absolutely hammered. And it was a highlight catch, and he made it. Then we got penalized and got pushed back, and we never got a touchdown. So we got a I think we had a field goal there at that point. And then we got it again, and then that's when he went long to Hubert and scored. We scored. So, and when it came down to the fourth quarter, when we got into the third, we started to move the ball a bit, and then we sort of had a couple of bobbles where we threw an interception and we fumbled. And it gave Alberta a really good field position a couple of times. And they got out of those 2 possessions with only 1 point. And that really made a difference.
Yeah.
Perspective. And, they moved the ball again a bit in the fourth, until that last sequence when there was about 3 minutes to go, or 3 or 4 minutes. And that's where we again took advantage of the opportunities that were there. And Donnie caught 3 passes pretty well in a row. I think there was one play in between the same play, and there was 4 guys around him in the last 2 catches. And as you said, they were all tall, but Steve got it in there. And then once we got a little bit of momentum, I remember the feeling is everybody felt like we're going to take this thing down and make it happen, and that's exactly what happened. So we ended up running it in. Went back to our run again when we got close to the goal line and ran it in, but it was taking advantage of of what was working at that particular day. And as Steve Repick said after the game, we had to adjust, and Coach Eward was great at adjusting. If things didn't work, he'd adjust on the fly and go to the next thing that would work. And and I think that's the mark of a great coach.
And Donnie, Keith touches on it about what happens in the fourth quarter, and just before you go on this great drive, which I think was about 75 yards, and you're catching 3 of them. Of course, Quentin Tynes ends it all by running it, I think, from the 2-yard line. But just before that, this game is tied at 11. Alberta goes down to kick a field goal. They miss it, and it goes through the end zone. They pick up a point. So I don't know if at that point, we talk about opportunistic, if that changes the complexion, if you guys still go down the field. But take us, you're down by a point now. Take us through that drive, Donnie, because Repick's hitting you with 3 passes and get you guys down to pretty much the goal line.
It's hard to remember back 40 years, as Keith said earlier. And, I think a few of us had a little more hair at that point. But the feeling, I think the thing that Coach taught us, which was, I think, resonated at that moment in time was, stick to what you know, and you did a million times. So just go out and do what you've practiced. And during practices throughout the year, we put ourselves in high pressure situations. And I don't think there's, so when you went out there, you just were trying to execute the play and you weren't really focused on the situation. And I think that I know for me, if I start thinking about situations, I can honestly get nervous. And I didn't get nervous at that point in time. I think a lot of that was just the way we were trained, the way we were coached, people around you, you knew who they were, you knew their ability, and we didn't know what was going to happen. We were just going out there to do what we've been doing 1,000 times in practice all year long. And it just happened to work. And if you look at some of those passes, they get threaded in amongst 5 people, like Keith said. One of those gets batted away, game's over, Alberta wins the Vanier Cup. So it's a very fine line. It's a little bit of luck, but it's, we had a lot of great coaching, a lot of great people put in a lot of effort, and it sort of culminates in a last-minute drive. And Snoopy Tynes, a hell of a ball player, really I think he broke a 30-yard run there in the final minute. And, and then we had to really grind our way into getting it across the finish line. Other thing I remember when I do recall some of the video is that Jim Dorenzo, our kicker, was on the sideline, and they were showing video of him because he was thinking he was going to have to kick a game-winning field goal to win it, and he was really nervous. So a lot of nervous people as the game, we started to move down the field. And anyway, it worked out really well for us, and we're very, very fortunate, right? It was a great experience in life, amazing experience.
After it's all over, you guys, you win the College Bowl. When you reflect on it, years later, whether it was just after the game or years later, you always talk about Acadia being the small school that it is. And then you look at schools like the University of Alberta, it's so big, and the enrollment, the population, and the success of athletic programs. How soon did it sink in, Keith, that this was pretty special? And not to take anything away from the Acadia Axemen, but I think on a national scale, everybody looks at a small school like Acadia and says, how are they here? When did it sink in that this was pretty special?
Well, I think first off, if you get an opportunity to go and play in a game like that, and coming from a small area like Wolfville is, for us at that age, that's the show for us, right? To go up there and do that and get an opportunity to play in Varsity Stadium and in front of a big crowd, and to get the opportunity was something to begin with. But after you win, you realize, there's not that many people did this, and we're from a small area and we've done it. And then you go back to Wolfville and you come into town and they have all the fire trucks lined up, and we're coming through town and the town's packed and they're yelling and screaming, and we go around the Raymond Field in them and then into the gym, and it just is really gives me goosebumps right now just thinking about it again, because the feeling that you get at that point is something that's you don't get to experience much in life, and it's a memory that really resonates with you. So yeah, it was, and then I think about it even, I think about, that memory of playing in that game and being part of it, is something that you think about a fair amount, and not because, it's just because it was one of the great experiences in life, that's for sure, that you've had. And, but it, it sinks in pretty quick after you get it and you realize, holy gosh, we did this, and we're national champs, right?
And of course, recognized for the achievements of that year, Donnie, in the Acadia Sports Hall of Fame, the 81 team. And of course, about 7 or 8 years ago, recognized provincially going into the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame. Must be a very special feeling for you guys.
Oh, for sure. And to be honest, I think, it's nice to be recognized in awards. I mean, I think our coach always said, it's not about the awards. It's just about winning and being together as a team. And I think, the nice thing about Nova Scotia Hall of Fame is it brought the team back and to Nova Scotia, and people came from all over the world to get together again. I think we had about 35 people, 40 people, who came, players that came from all over the world. And so it's great to see people. We've been trying to get together with our team, our 81 team, honestly, every 5 to 10 years. And as we get older, it's a very important thing, and it's great relationships that made up that team, and they're still great people today, and we're very, very lucky to have those relationships. So, but the awards are nice, but it was really, I think about the people is really the way I think about it. And, I'd say, Keith and I see each other on a regular basis. My best friend, Stuart McLean, lives next door to Keith, and he's been my best friend for 40 years. If I hadn't played football, I would have never met my best friend for my entire life. And how fortunate are we to have, great people come into our life at such an early age, and it's all as a result of Acadia and Acadia football. So we're very, very fortunate.
It was a very special year at Acadia, and you guys, along with so many teammates from 81, are such passionate football guys and bleed Acadia red and blue. And really appreciate you doing this. And of course, next year, 2021, you'll celebrate your 40th anniversary. Hate to remind you of those years.
Well, thanks, Len.
We're really looking forward to it. And I was speaking to a couple of the guys in the last few days, just because I knew we were going to do this. I had to get my memory, revived a little bit. And it's amazing. Like, the guys are just saying, we're coming back, and we're going to come back for a week and spend the time. Like, they're really looking forward to it now. So should be a fun time next year, and hopefully things will be opened up and everybody can make it back.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Guys, thanks for doing this, and congratulations on such a great success.
Okay. Thanks, Len. Really appreciate it.